Welcome to you all. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Yagara people, acknowledging their unbroken line of connection to this place, to culture and spirituality. We have together gathered a number of people here for this project who come from all walks, many of us from our parish, but not all, and that is what this project is about. The project is about seeking to bring this incredibly good idea with all the heart and volunteering power that we can muster to make a difference in the lives of those who need it most. The thing that I love most about this project is the honouring it has of the clients. So many things, when we can come with a good heart, can still go badly. Through history, Christian charity has been notorious for getting it wrong at times, particularly when we look at the Indigenous people of this land. The thing that I love about this project is that it seems to be a win all round. It's a win for the environment when 30% of new clothing goes into landfill, and we are then repurposing that to people who need it most. Beautiful clothing. It is a win for those who, at the worst time in their lives, do not deserve to be given hand-me-downs or treated as an object of pity, but actually be given empowerment and agency where they get to go and shop as the rest of us do, with a gift voucher instead of a long form to fill out, where they can come and choose clothing for what will make them feel good, not just because it happens to fit and they happen to be given it. I love the fact that we as volunteers will get to know one another better, that we, in working together, in no doubt many hours of folding clothes and deciding on colours and how we can be a stylist for others, that we will get to know one another. I love it that when we go out on site, we will get to know those people who are clients and get to serve them and just share this experience of clothing that's well made, that's brand new, that can make you feel really great and enjoy the joy that flows from that. So many reasons why I love this project. I am going to hand over now to Leanne Wood, who has been coordinating this project for us from Anglicare, and she will be taking us through some guidelines. Now, we do have people who will be watching this online, not now, but later on, so that we can share this. If there is anyone you know who is interested that couldn't make it today, we'll be able to send you the link to the video so they can watch this at another time. Thank you.
Sue has so beautifully put together what Anglicare's interest in this project is as well, and my interest. My role is Research, Social Policy and Advocacy Advisor for Anglicare, and this is probably the best project I've worked on for 3 years, so really enjoying working with you, and I think that the potential for us to work in partnership on this project has been really, really special. So today is all about the practicalities, and what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through. First of all, I'll just briefly talk about a bit of an update on where we've got up to, what's still underway. I'll hit some of the highlights of the handbook, some of those procedures, regardless of what role that you think that you might play in the project. It's good to have that bit of an overall picture. And particularly focus on safety for both our volunteers and for our customers or our service users. But I really want you to feel this is much more formal than I would normally do a training session, so please feel free just to ask questions at any time. We'd aim to be out before 11. If we're out earlier than that, that's great, but certainly have you out the door by 11 o'clock. So just to give you a little bit of an update, first of all, you all know that the van arrived. That was very exciting. We had some wonderful volunteers who unpacked that massive number of boxes that was in the van, and I don't for one moment underestimate how much work was involved in doing that and storing them in Sue's garage. As of today, 1st of December, Bunnings have donated about 4 or 5 sets of shelving and some hanging racks. So we're able to pick those up, and that should make life a lot easier. And we're also going to apply to the local Kmart at Indooroopilly, and see if they'll give us some storage crates. So hopefully that process will become a lot easier, where we can actually say, well, here's all the women's shorts, their sizes, etc. And things will be a lot easier for people who are working at that end. In the background, we did a whole lot of liaison with the Women's Service at Toowong for Anglicare, and we had our first visit a couple of weeks ago. Sue and I found that a really satisfying and wonderful experience, but it was also, I guess, a little bit chaotic because it was the first time ever. And we felt that it was really important for us to know what we were asking our volunteers to do as well. So that was great. And we're going back to the Women's Service on the 10th of December, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. We've also got another trip lined up to InSync, which is our youth services. 3 youth services actually at one location on the 7th of December, so we can talk some more about that. We've been doing a whole lot of comms in the background, communication, so you'll see there's a couple of newsletters floating around, and I'd like to try and do that once a month or so. So because it's a growing project and because we are refining things as we go along, it'll be really important to make sure everybody's in the loop. The parish, community, and also Anglicare staff and new services that we'll bring on board as things develop as well. Been really busy developing the handbook that you've got here. Apologies for the glasses on and off all the time. I brought the wrong one, so I can only see here or there. I can't see you both at the same time. So the handbook is a living document. Just because it's printed, just because you've got a PDF, do not expect that that's going to be the last version. And we will refine that constantly as we get new services on board. You'll see that there's places in the handbook where there'll be a list of emergency numbers for the services that we go to. There'll be a list of the instructions about where to park the van and where you go, what you do when you get there. That'll be constantly updated. We've got a little notebook that we'll keep in the van, and if you get there and go, actually, this is not the right place, it's much better if we park somewhere else, or you've got suggestions, please write them in the notebook, and we will, or any of these processes, if you find a better way of doing it, please let us know, because this is the first time Threaded Together have worked with Anglicare in South Australia and in the Riverina, but they're in-house projects. It's Anglicare staff or Anglicare volunteers. Nobody else this is the first time in Queensland, and nobody else in Australia has actually done it as a partnership the way we're doing it. So we're making it up as we go along, and we're doing our very best, but we would certainly like your help to improve any of the processes or the forms or anything else as we go along. So I've been liaising with some more of our Anglicare services to line up our next visits, and as I said, we've got 2 more lined up before Christmas. We thought that's probably about as much as we can manage. Into next year, there's quite a few others who've put their hands up and said, please pick us. And that will depend as we get, as we have more volunteers and as we feel really comfortable with what we're doing, then we'll expand that. And we will definitely expand beyond Anglicare. Some of the parishes will be keen to have the van come along, if particularly parishes in areas that have some challenges. Certainly after COVID, there's a lot of those. And we'll also be talking to some of the other community organisations such as Communify or Third Space, or pretty much any of the community organisations that work with people who are doing it tough. So the sky's the limit. We can just keep growing as far as we can manage it and people are comfortable with it. And we're recruiting a volunteer coordinator role. So Anglicare is employing somebody for the equivalent about 2 days a week who will work with me and with Sue. across Anglicare and St Andrews. Down the track, that person may help us with a third site. I've been talking to one of the parishes further south about the potential for setting up a Thread Together retail hub, which is the equivalent of a shop. And people can come in and be served in a normal retail type of environment. That's a little bit further down the track. COVID slowed that one more than it slowed this particular project. But so the volunteer coordinator could well be involved in that process as well. So that's where we're up to. Has anybody got any questions about what we've done so far at this stage? Feel free at any point to put your hand up anyway, or just call out, you don't have to put your hand up. So we can work our way through a few of the procedures, and some of these won't be things that you'll be involved in. Some of you will be going out in the van, some of you will be doing the stocking behind the scenes, but to give you that bigger picture of what, the process from where to go, I think is kind of handy. And Sue has also mentioned about everybody at some point coming out in the van and coming to one of the sites, so that you can kind of see the end of what it is that you're doing. If you're behind the scenes and you're folding jeans and putting them on shelves, why are you doing that, and what's so special about your contribution? So at some point it'd be great for everybody to come out. So if you've got your handbook there, I thought I'd just kind of hit a few of the high points, as I said. So on page 8, we've got a section called Procedures for Volunteers. And there's a sample roster there, so the volunteer coordinator will, that will be one of their key roles, to be in touch with all of the volunteers and to develop a roster of who goes out and when. That's actually pinched from Anglicare South Australia, so you can see the number that they actually go out, twice a week, and some of those, when they take the van out, they go to more than one site. So it can get quite complex. It will be really, really important that you stay in touch with the coordinator, so that if you're going on holidays or you can't make it for a particular day, that communication is, you do that and let them know, so that we don't kind of end up with a driver and nobody to go out with them. We have some people who will be ordering stock, and at this stage we've got Kate, I think Kate, yeah, hello Kate. I can order stock, the volunteer coordinator will, and Sue is also registered, and that basically is, it's an online portal, just really, really simple, that we can go to the Thread Together site and say, okay, we need 20 pairs of men's jeans in a size large. We need 30 pairs of women's shoes or whatever, and they have a massive warehouse in Sydney, which they've just moved into, and hundreds of volunteers, and they put that order together. And downstairs at the moment, actually, right outside Tim's door is a big pile of boxes that have just arrived, and you saw them when they came in the van as well. So that will be happening very regularly, because every time we go out, when we went to the women's service a couple of weeks ago, we probably half emptied the van. And the services that we're going to, particularly for Anglicare, many of those service users pretty much don't have much at all. So it's not a matter of some of the services down south, particularly in the bushfire regions. People will come and say, look, I really desperately need a couple of pairs of shoes, and it's a quick and easy fix. Our clients tend to have not much at all, and so it's a whole process of setting them up with, as a good contribution toward a wardrobe. So we go through a lot of stock, so that's a really, really important role. So we will be doing that regularly, and I think there's a few different ways that we will get the information about what we need to order. What I've tried to do when we went out previously, we had the gift cards, and we scribbled madly down on those what people took with them, so that we could try and work out, what had gone out. So I've tried to refine that a little bit, and in the booklet, you should see there's a kind of over the page, a bit of a screen capture down the bottom of page 11 of kind of an item selected form. I've got samples of those up here anyway if you want to have a look at them later. You don't have to get too pedantic about any of this. Don't get stressed if you forget something. Someone's gone off and taken some clothes and you've forgotten to record it. But it would help if, as people take their clothing and you pack it into a bag, if you can kind of roughly just tick a box to say, okay, they've taken 3 pairs of size 10 shorts or whatever. But don't get worried about it if you forget. It's not a big issue. It's really just about trying to give us a bit of an idea of what stock's really popular for those particular sites. So when we go back again, we can make sure that we've got a lot of that particular thing. The Women's Service actually has an outreach element as well, and there were 3 young men who came along a couple of weeks ago. All we had were mediums in shirts, and most of them needed larges or extra larges. So, we actually just needed to record that so that I could go and order some extra large and large for next time, so that the same people don't keep missing out all the time. And the special requests and communication notebook, it's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, it's basically, you'll see it's little notebooks, got that written on the front of it. We'll keep it in the van. Now, you might find that people do have special requests. So, for example, one of the women who came to us at the last visit, her husband had a court date and he had trousers and shoes. He had no appropriate shirt to wear. So she said, do you think it could be possible to get a shirt and a nice vest? So we did that as a special order, and it was sent directly from Thread Together over to the Women's Service with her name on it. So we can do those sorts of things as well. So if you come across, people who really need a particular thing, or, a block-coloured top to go with a business skirt, or, those kinds of things that you can't find them in the van, you can do that special order. So just pop it in that book, just write it down, and, at the end of each visit, we'll check the book and see what needs to be ordered. So we can address the needs of individuals as well as just what happens to be in the van. So that stock gets delivered free of charge. Toll couriers have a little bit of space in their vans when they travel to Queensland, and so they squeeze Thread Together boxes into that, and they do that for nothing. So they deliver it here or to any of our sites as well for free. So replenishing the van. So what we're hoping to do at some point is to get someone who's got a bit of visual merchandising experience or retail experience who might come and do a sort of a little spot for us, and sort of talk about setting it up, because it's not just about just getting everything in the van, hanging up or on the shelves. It's actually about having it look attractive and look appealing, and it's basically a mini retail environment that so people feel that they're having that experience. It doesn't kind of give them the sense of that everything's just been thrown in there. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, I think that's one of the things that Thread Together are quite keen to ensure, that everything that we do is provides that experience of dignity and joy, so that people actually feel that they walk away feeling really good. And it's not just about the clothes, it's about the way that we engage with them, and it's about the way that the things are presented, and it's that whole package, really. So that's replenishing the stock is actually a really important role. Driving and parking the van. So we've got a very simple pre-driving checklist that we will ask drivers just to go through, and this is just part of the whole risk management, just making sure that they know where that the tyres are okay, and that they know where the indicators are, and all of those sorts of things, that the lights are working, and they'll just tick that off before they go. So there's a bunch of things which will be in the van, and there's quite a long list there in the handbook. You don't have to worry about those too much. They should be there, but if at the end of a visit you know that we've run out of a particular form, or the hand sanitiser's just about run out, or whatever, can you just pop that in the notebook as well? And it just keeps the communication flowing, so that the next time people go out, they're not going to find that they don't have what they need. We want it to be as positive and as easy for volunteers as it possibly can be. Any questions at this stage? I'm just using an awful lot of words, are you? That's a really good question. We had 15, our very first visit to the women's service. With InSync, it's, as I said, the youth services on the 7th. That's 3 separate services. They'll be bringing their young people. That's InSync, bail support services, and also our supported community accommodation, which is basically bail support as well. So they were talking 30, 40, I'm not sure of the exact numbers yet. I know that down south they've said they have had up to 70, but a lot of, when they had large numbers, some of those were, simply, I just need a pair of shoes. So hopefully what I'm trying to do in the liaison process with the services is to try and find out roughly how many gift cards or referral forms they hand out, so that we've got a bit of an idea of how many people will be there, and we can try and adjust that as we need to, the number of volunteers who might go along. People, I think from reports from some other thread together services, I think people are aware that they will have to wait, and that they get their special time to actually go through the van, and are quite comfortable just sort of sitting and having a chat. What we did with the last, at the women's service, is because they all need to register because of COVID, so when they were registering, I just had a bit of a chat and said, look, because women lived on site, I said, we can actually make a rough appointment time for you. So, if you want to go away and do something, come back in an hour, then you can do that as well. So we'll just have to manage that each time we go out, but I will, in most circumstances, know roughly how many people will be coming along, and we can work with that. Yeah. So site visits, we've been working on about 2 hours. Depending if we're at a site where, it looks like it might be manageable, a relatively small number of people, what we could potentially do is have the van down the track, have the van go out twice in a day, do a 9 to 11 and then a 1 till 3 or something like that. But yeah, we'll just manage that as we go along, really. But I would expect probably women's service we did 2 hours. I've allowed 2 hours down at InSync, but if we get as many young people as we think, and particularly teenage girls who might take a little bit longer to choose, might look at being a little bit over time. We just don't know. So you just kind of need to allow a little bit of extra time in case it's, we want to make sure that we get through everybody. Yep. Probably the volunteer coordinator will do that. Yeah.
So they go pick up the ball, take it.
I think that's the way unless we work out something that works better. The key, when you bring the van back, you'll need to drop the key into the parish office, or if it's after hours, if you've done a 3 to 5 session somewhere and come back in, you'll need to drop the key back with Sue at the rectory. If that's the case, it might be convenient to drop the little booklet in with the key as well. So we can kind of work out what works best for you, really. Yeah.
Leanne, can I just ask you, Leanne, if you could repeat the question for the sake of the video?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So that was just about how long the session might be at various sites. Yeah. So, sure. Yeah, that's a good question too. So at the moment, Shubra, yes, asked whether we're just confined to Brisbane at this stage. Look, that will depend very much on you, really, on volunteers, and how far people are comfortable to travel in a day. Where I've really only been in touch with more or less our metropolitan services at this stage. Beenleigh, the InSync is at Beenleigh. They also have a service at Cleveland. I would imagine at this stage that's probably as far as we'd try and go, and maybe out to, I don't know, Caboolture or something on the north side, just making that up. So we can kind of work through that. Down the track, people might feel comfortable travelling a little bit further, but we can work that out as we go along. At this stage, they're definitely a little bit closer. Yeah, enough doable in a day, well and truly. Yeah. Kath?
What if there was another benefit to the notebook that we could add, not just the issues, but we could add the positives as well. So Sue's come back with a lovely story saying, somebody said, I feel like I'm in David Jones. That's tacit knowledge.
Yeah.
But we have nowhere that we've noted it. So if we could keep the book also to keep some of those positive things that we're doing right.
Yeah.
For testimonials, marketing,
Absolutely. Yeah. So Kath was just saying about using the notebook to capture the good news stories as well. And yeah, absolutely. We need those stories. I think they're really great for, you to share as volunteers, to know that what you're doing is making a difference, but it's also really important for us to feed that back, to thread together, because they provide us with the van and they provide us with all the clothes, and we want to make sure that they're comfortable with the job that we're doing, and also more broadly into the community. They're just really nice stories that I think we should be sharing. So yeah, please, if you have good news stories, or if you have suggestions, as I said before, for processes that we could change, or something's working really well for you, any of that, just use the notebook as just a way to communicate back and forth, and don't feel restricted about what you can put in there. We'll just use it as a channel between the volunteers and the coordinator, and between Sue and I as well. Yep. Okay. So travelling in the mobile wardrobe. Unfortunately, we can only fit 2 people, so we can only fit the driver and one other person. So it's highly likely that at some of our sites, at least, people might need to drive their own cars there and meet us there. The Stylist is really what we found last week was that we were both doing that role to some extent, and it will be easier when we don't have COVID restrictions about people trying things on. At this stage, what we have to do is simply allow one person at a time to get in the van and choose, and then we kind of we'll help a little bit as they get out. So it's a little bit more restricted. Once they can try things on, the back of the van will lift up. You've all seen the van, and we can put a mirror and a curtain around that so people can try things on. And then I think the stylist role will be much more active at that stage, because we'll be able to go, okay, that doesn't quite work, or do you need another size, or let's see what we can do to add on to that. but at this stage it's a little bit more limited. But yeah, certainly that role is actually about welcoming people. You don't have to do any gatekeeping. That's the purpose of the gift cards from our staff, is that they have already been identified basically as people who are doing it tough and need a bit of a hand. So basically all you need to do is just kind of take that gift card, and again, if they don't have it or you forget, don't stress about it, and they've already been through that process. Make them welcome, make them feel great. That's really the role of the stylist.
Leanne, can I just add in there?
Absolutely.
I think people, from our first experience, people will act very differently. Some would come in and be very conscious of the queue behind them and wanting to be very quick and not wanting to take too much. Then the next person might come in and be much more expansive. Now, we don't know their needs. We don't know if they need an entire wardrobe. So there's a certain amount, this is just a grace-based thing. People come in and they take what they want. The only parameter probably is the time, which we sort of gently said, oh, we've better keep moving now with the next person, with a couple of them, but very gently. So there is no judgment if people take a huge pile, really, or if they take a few. The only, watching the time. And the other thing is, because we can't try things on at the moment, if you encourage people instead, if they get it home and it doesn't fit, that they pass it on to someone else who could use it. So they can't return it at the moment at all, but could they just pass it on to someone else who might enjoy that garment? I also encourage people who took swimwear to try it on as if you're in a change room, so try it on with your undies on, so that if it doesn't fit, you can pass that on.
Yeah, absolutely. So no judgment in terms of, some people had 3 bags full of clothing, and we don't know what their needs are, so that's absolutely fine. You don't have to gatekeep any of that. We would ask you when people are waiting, have a chat, if people are comfortable to have a chat. These days you do kind of need to suggest social distancing, but it is not your role to have to police that. There will be staff around and they'll say something if they need to. We are aware a lot of our clients don't tend to socially distance. It's something, it's one of the few things they've got control over in their lives, and they choose not to. So, just as long as you're safe and as long as, you maintain that distance, it's not you don't need to police that at all. You can suggest it gently. And we've got sanitizer, we've got wet wipes and whatnot to wipe things down. So we'll do the best to make sure that our volunteers are safe, and the staff will have that responsibility to make sure that service users are as safe as possible as well. In Sync, it's a residential, one of their services is residential, so that might be feasible to have, a couple of young people who live in the same house to get in the van at the same time, and certainly there won't be any social distancing there because they're living, in a family group basically. Each service will be a little bit the same, and those are the things that when, as we go on, Sue and I will obviously record what we can from the sites that we visit, but you will find out other things from other services as well as you go to different sites, so please put them in the book. If your experience will help the next time we go down there and the next group of volunteers to know, what to expect. And also it gives me, as it filters back through to me, I can go and have a conversation with the staff if there are things that we need to, just to rejig so that it works better for everybody. So, yeah. No, we haven't actually worked that out. This is just about cleaning down the van.
COVID, then 72 hours is a magic number for us in terms of cleaning. So I know it's not perfect, but they are the guidelines that we've been given. If things have been 72 hours, the chances of the virus surviving past that or in any quantity are quite low. Surfaces after that are not considered to be an issue, although there's other scientific reports that say something different, I know, but 72 hours. So if we were going out within 3 days, then we might have to do something, but no otherwise.
Yeah, so we're wiping down, as I said, we've got wipes that you can, wipe down touch points and that sort of thing. But yeah, in terms of a full clean, yeah, we'll probably need to talk about that if we're doing trips, a little bit more regularly into next year. Yeah. Yes. Yes, yes, yeah. So those touch points, if we've got wet wipes, as I said, in the van, sanitizer. If you're just regularly in between service users, we're just wiping things down, making sure everybody's sanitising before they get in the van on the way out. Those, where they kind of pull themselves up the step. We just wipe those down on a regular basis. Yeah, so we'll take those precautions as much as we can, obviously. Yeah. So the drivers, some of the drivers will be more than happy to be part of the whole styling process. Some probably won't, and that's absolutely fine. We're going to take a couple of camp chairs, and for the driver, they might just want to have a sit and have a bit of a chat to people as they come past. That's as much. That is as important as providing the clothes. So, to each their comfort level. We're not going to insist that the drivers, choose clothes for people or help people choose clothes if they don't feel comfortable with that. One of the things I did mention the form before, so as they choose, if they've got their bag full of bits and pieces, if you can kind of just tick on the form roughly what you think that they've taken to help us with reordering. But the one that is really important, and there's a picture of it on page 11, is a registration form. So they do have to provide their name and a phone number for COVID reasons. We've also asked them to indicate their age group and gender. Some people won't want to do that, and that's absolutely fine. That will help us with our planning and our reporting, but if they choose not to provide that information, that's no stress. We do need to know how many people that we've provided the service to, and it'd be great to have that extra information, but we certainly understand if they don't want to provide that. Some people don't want to provide a phone number for privacy reasons, or they have other issues where they're a little bit concerned about providing phone numbers. So for some of the women at the women's service, they just put HSWF, which is the name of the service, so that we knew that we could contact them if there was any issues, that COVID tracers could track them down through that location. It's not such an issue at the moment because we know that all of these service users, all of our customers are actually coming through Anglicare services, and we always know that we're going to be able to track them down that way. Down the track, if we go to, Valley Hearts, for example, which is kind of a community org that puts on meals in the park for people who are homeless, if we went there, that would be more important because it would be much harder to track people down if they're not registered to a particular service. So that's why we ask for that. But at this stage, particularly, if they want to put whether the service that they're connected to rather than their own personal number, that's fine too. Okay, I don't want to drown you in detail. All of this is in the handbook, but I just wanted to kind of hit the main points of the procedures so that if you've got questions or you want to go back to the handbook, you know that it's there. There is a section there about engaging with our wardrobe users, and Sue, would you like to talk to some of that?
Yeah, sure. Number one rule is always don't be alone. Don't find yourself in a situation where you're alone with anyone. I even like that amongst our volunteers, that we always have more than one person with us. Everyone needs a blue card, and that's a given, but I've always found myself not trusting to the blue card system when we have to use common sense, and the best single protection is to make sure you're with someone else. So that situation might come up more when we're allowed changing. Obviously that they are in the change room by themselves, and you're outside with others. There's even in the van, just making sure someone else is around at all times. I think that's the main thing. The other thing is just with disclosing personal information. Just you are there to assist, but keep your own personal information to yourself. So if they ask, there's always ways that you can turn a question round that you're not giving away your personal information. So don't give details of, your address, phone number, family members, that kind of thing. Just protect that to yourself. I think they're the main two big ones I was thinking of.
Yeah, so at the front of the book, right in the front of the booklet, and there will also always be a copy of this in the van as well. There's a series of emergency numbers, and it's very unlikely that you're going to need them, but we will make sure that there is a contact number for each of the services that we go to as well for a staff member, this mobile number. So if you've got a particular concern or a question, or you're really just feeling, I just want somebody to come down, they're not here right at the moment, I really prefer them to come down right now, then you can give them a call, and there'll be somebody who will pop down and just, or come out and just just be around. Again, it's unlikely, but I think we just need to make sure that we're covering off all of the all the safety issues.
So having your mobile phone with you then is a handy, in making sure at least one person does, but preferably everyone. And also, if afterwards something strikes you as you're a bit uncomfortable about it, or something happened, please, I'm here to call me so you can have a debrief over what happened, and we can talk it through. But remember, we are going out to client sites where there are staff members on all situations.
Yeah. I'm sorry, could you speak up a little?
This form is enough for, filling the form is enough, or do we need to take some identity proof from
No, we don't need identity proof, no. If they've got their gift cards, that's great, if you can collect that. That's really just, look, it really doesn't matter very much to us, but from the Anglicare point of view, it's good training for me to get our staff thinking about providing those referrals. If they've got something tangible to write down, I refer such and such, here's a gift card, then they're more likely to remember to do it. So it's really an internal management process as much as anything else. And we like doing it as gift cards rather than as a referral, because it just has a nicer feel to it. It goes with that whole, the ethos of Thread Together. If you can collect them, I think, it's handy, because they'll have the person's name on it, and they'll also have the staff name on there, and which also means that I can have a quick look and just see, which staff are being particularly supportive, and I can lean on them, later on if I need to. Yeah.
That's what we have, a basket now that someone can have the basket and collect the gift form cards in the basket.
If they don't have a voucher,
Yes.
is there a tick box that says they don't have a voucher?
I wouldn't worry too much, because you do need to get them to register on the registration form. Yeah, so, and it's highly likely, and there were a couple of people who forgot at the women's service, but they live at the women's service, and they're clearly known to the staff, and they're clearly in need. This is about helping people who need a hand up. So if they don't have their form, they've forgotten, or it comes out in a sort of scrunched up little bundle, we really don't care. It's just that's just part of the process for me to manage it internally.
Okay, so the assumption is the number of vouchers that you have
Yes.
is going to or not meet.
In theory, the number of vouchers, yeah.
Might reduce the amount of time it takes you to do that reconciliation.
Look, I probably won't reconcile it, to tell you the truth. Yeah, I mean, in theory, the number of gift cards will match the number of people who've registered, but there may well be, where it would be probably concerning would be if we had more gift cards than we had registrations, because that's information that we need for COVID. But I really the registration form will be that will be what we'll use for record keeping. Yeah, okay. You'll often have a mixture, even as I said, even at the Women's Service, they have a community outreach program as well. So we had 3 young men who came along. Some you'll have, you know, all men or all women, but for the most part, I would expect that there'll probably be a mixture. Yeah, yeah. Just to sort of follow up on Sue's comment about, you know, sort of staying safe and not giving out your personal information. I think the other thing to keep in mind, and it's made a little bit easier because of COVID, because we do have social distancing, but keep in mind that many of these people are actually in Anglicare services because they've had, you know, extraordinarily traumatic backgrounds. We don't know what those are, and you don't know, you know, crowding people, sometimes getting too close, sometimes people aren't comfortable with that. So I think it's really important just to give people, you know, you have your personal space, but also to give other people their personal space, and you'll be able to read it a little bit about what's appropriate. But just keep in mind, you know, that you don't know where they've come from, what their journey has been, and you just, yeah, probably just need to be kind of aware of those sorts of things. In the back of the handbook, we'll have information about all of the services that you go to. So at the moment, there's a little bit there about InSync, there's a little bit about the Women's Service, what they do, how many people they help, what that structure is. So it just gives you a little bit of a background. So, you know, if you're coming down to InSync with us, then you know roughly what age groups, what the young people. These are kids who are at risk of homelessness. The kids in the bail support service are, you know, on remand. So, you know, you've got a little bit of information that you're not just kind of fronting up and going, oh, you know, who's coming today? You know, you've got some information, and that helps you to kind of get your head around a little bit around, you know, what you might expect when you get there. Yeah? Yeah. Well, we didn't, but I mean, we introduced ourselves to everybody. Yeah. I don't see any issue with having, you know, your first name on a sticker. I've been talking to Anthony, who's heads up Thread Together, about getting us some T-shirts. So they would have Thread Together and Anglicare and Anglican Church Southern Queensland on branded on the T-shirts. He's got to try and find some, obviously we don't want to buy them and add to textile waste that's going out there, so he's actually trying to find something that's been donated that we could get printed, so I'll keep, you know, I'll keep you in the loop about that. That would be really good. You know, that way you would be very easily identifiable. But yeah, I don't see any reason why you couldn't just have a sticker or your name tag. I wouldn't put your last name, but yeah, your first name would be absolutely fine. Yeah, and definitely we introduced ourselves and, you know, had a bit of a chat to people. It's about, you know, being welcoming but not being, you know, over the top, really. Yeah. Yep. Okay, well, how are we going for time? 10:30. So I'm just trying to see what else Okay, so I'll just talk a little bit about, and we have talked a bit about keeping safe. So yes, we need a blue card. So, and St Andrews will pay as a volunteer. Actually, that's free, isn't it? Blue cards. So you do need to talk to Sue or Tim if you haven't already got one. They're reasonably quick at the moment. I just had to renew mine. Didn't take very long to come through. We need a traffic history. If you're going to be a driver, we do need a traffic history. And again, St Andrews will pay for that. It's about $25, I think, through Transport and Main Roads. I'll talk about manual handling. So in that bunch of documents that Sue sent to you, there was a diocesan safety induction booklet. We've got a few spare copies here if you need them. But yeah, that's largely around manual handling, particularly if you're doing the stock out here and stacking shelves and things, about lifting things safely, all of those things. And there is also a diagram in the back of the handbook that shows you how to lift things carefully. But we do need you to read that document and to sign an acknowledgement that you've read it. It's just part of the risk management that the diocese asks for you. So I've got some spare copies of those. Yep. Yep. But that's okay. We've got some spares here, so I can give you a hard copy. It's fascinating reading. But we do need you to all read that and just sign it off. I was being a little bit just tongue-in-cheek. There's also a list in there of, and I won't go through them all, but volunteer rights and responsibilities. So our responsibility is to look after you, and your responsibility is to communicate with us and to do to do the best to help things run smoothly. And so have a look at that as well. There's a bunch of other information in there about insurance and all the fascinating things that you need to know about, but they are important, and I'll get you to have a look at those before you go out in the van. What else? And I think that's pretty much it from me. So that's a lot of talking. I would just really like to answer any questions that people have got at this point.
Could I also, Leah, before we just get on to straight questions, put in the actual practicalities of when we're going out next. We have, as usual, around here a tight time frame because I'm on a lot of leave this week, and yet next Monday is the 7th, right?
Yes, yeah.
And we're going out to InSync on the 7th, and do we have a time for that? Was that 10 o'clock?
Yeah, 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, so 10 o'clock at Beanleys, so it's an early start.
And there may be a chance for, I'd certainly like to have a carload plus someone in the van go out there. I may have to, I will plan on still going, but I may have to leave a bit early depending on how long we're there, 10 till...
Yeah, well, I've said 10 till 12, 10 till 12:30, but
that's
again,
fine
it
then,
just depends on how many young people.
Yes, I think 2.5 hours will be quite hard with that anyway.
Yeah.
So that's that one. So that we will need different clothes in the van for Monday than we will need for the following Thursday when we're going back to women's...
The women's service over at Toowong, so they're an older group for the most part, whereas InSync are all teenagers,
So what I will be needing, and if you could speak to me before you go today, if you're able to help, I may or may not need, and I'd love it if someone who did it last time, eyeballing a couple of friends here, who could take over, particularly if I'm not here, because you know how it works. So someone to load the van this week with the new clothes that we've got. Someone next week to load, and we should be able to share the burden of this. So someone to load it next week between Monday and Thursday. So clearing out from the old stock, putting in new stock, and ready to go back to the women's service. And then also after that, just continuing with the orders and the sorting clothes.
Yeah.
I'm also looking for someone who can put shelving together when we get it, because that's definitely not my skill area.
Well, we've got to contact Bunnings. We're going to send us an email today. It's in their December donations. So they're going to send us an email today and say, it's here, you can come and get it. So we actually have to go and get it. They're not going to deliver it to us. Yes. And I think there's about 4 sets of shelving and 3 hanging racks. I'm not sure how big that is. Yeah, it's exciting. And we're hoping to get those crates from Kmart too, if we can.
I'm just wondering where your headquarters are. Are you based here? Is this where the majority of...
Yeah, headquarters in terms of the van and the stock is here at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes, and the heat is a problem. That's another thing. We've got packs of water bottles to take out. If you are volunteering, please, it would help us and help the planet if you bring your own water bottle. But when you come to help, my garage, unsurprisingly, is not air conditioned. So if you could please just make sure you dress in cool clothing. We'll try and keep you, position the van so we can keep you out of the sun. We've got a few camp chairs. If you have a camp chair of your own, probably wouldn't hurt to bring it in case we have a few of us, so that you can sit out at some point. So water, hydration, staying cool.
Yeah.
And there's things about lifting that please do make sure you are very careful with following the instructions for usual posture, bending the knees, that kind of thing, and never lifting anything that you feel uncomfortable, getting yourself off balance. Getting in and out of the van is not for everyone. So some people might be, oh, I'm just going to do the folding onto the table, and other people might be, I'm going to be able to dive into the van and hang things up in there, because it's a lot of stepping up and out, and it's quite a big step.
Oh, there is a step as well that we've put in so that you don't have to leap, but yeah, it still is a lot of stepping up and down. Yeah, we're also going to try and get a little fan of some description, battery operated. I'm not quite sure for in the van, because it actually gets quite hot in there. It's closed right at the back because somebody can fit more clothes in. Yeah. Excellent. Where was that, sorry? Bunnings. Okay, great.
I wondered whether a copy of each site's risk assessment form will be put in the van, and also I think will there also be incident reporting forms?
Yeah, well, we do need incident reporting forms.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
We have parish incident reporting forms, so I'd imagine it will go on that one.
In terms of risk assessment, we're going to make sure that volunteer coordinator or Sue or I, somebody in the kind of the project team has done an assessment of each of the sites before you have to go. So you'll see at the front page there's detailed instructions of where to park the van at the women's service, and there should be a photo of where to park at InSync. So I had the staff send through do a bit of an assessment of where we could park. Was there shade? Is there room that we can, open up the side of it, and wardrobe users can safely, and volunteers can safely access it. It's not too close to a road, so that, if people have got small children, they're not going to run off while mum's looking at clothes. So we'll do that kind of assessment with the sites, and most of that will happen when I'm liaising with the sites, because they're already aware of those things. So there won't actually be a risk assessment for every site. There is, and actually that's something I can get those, or just over on the side there, Sue. We have a risk plan that we have submitted, or Sue's signed off, and it's been made. Yep, that's it. So do you want to give it to everybody? Yeah. Yep. So we can just give you a copy of that. And we've kind of looked through what all the risks might be and how likely they are. Some aren't too serious. It's sunburn. Please, we'll provide sunscreen for you. But others obviously are more important, have greater outcomes if something goes wrong. So we've done that assessment. But having said that, this is a new project. We haven't done this before. So, some of that, if you come back and you know that there's a risk that we haven't thought of, please let us know. That communication will be really important. So have a read through that. I won't go through every one of them because a lot of them we've actually already talked about. And if you've got some questions about that or what we're doing to offset various risks, I'm more than happy to speak to those. I'll just give you a moment to have a look at it.
Whoever's placing the order, so whether it be Sue or the coordinator or Kate or whatever, is that going to be rostered each week so that we know we're not chasing around trying to find the right? So that would be.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most efficient way to do it. I guess once our volunteer coordinator is on board, we'll be, and Sue and I, and particularly me, because I'll be working closely with the coordinator, but we will probably be stepping back a little bit from the very, very hands-on work that we've been doing, and some of that will go to the volunteer coordinator. But yeah, so that kind of rostering, that communication, you know, making sure that things are running smoothly, that will be that person's role with the support of Sue and I, obviously, yeah. Yes. Well, that was Sue's comment just a minute ago, that she would really love some volunteers who would help. Sure. So when Sue's coming back now, so perhaps she can speak to that, because that'll be what works for her and what works for you in terms of stacking the van. So Sue, we've got a volunteer already for stacking the van ahead
Fantastic.
of the in-sync visit.
Okay, very good. I think we will, if anyone, maybe if you can just wait behind after today when we finish, and then we'll organise a time that we can set up. And I may not be here, but if I can have in that group people who are very familiar with our site and with the particular garage arrangement, then I'm sure that can happen in my absence.
Sure. Another question?
What would be regular meetings of volunteers, so you know in advance when you can put your name down to do certain things? Because I can't always commit on the same day or whatever.
Sure.
A bit of warning, I can organise myself to be there.
Yes.
So how will that be communicated?
I would imagine that we'll use Facebook a fair bit. Yeah.
I'll be Facebook, but also on our parish email. We have, though, if you received the big thread together mail out that had all the attachments, then you're on our mailing list. If I'm going to check and make sure everyone is. But that's what I will also use to send out from our database, just emails to a select group, so that we're not bombarding the hundreds of people on our mailing list with all the thread together details. So I think at the moment we're not in a rhythm yet of regular times. That will come, and we'll start as we get this going and are all set up in my garage, and as we have all of the relationships and time sorted. I'd imagine 2021 is when that's going to start to happen. So in the meantime, I'll email out with information.
And I think there's, you know, potentially every 3 or 6 months, or, you know, whatever that works for the parish, that we could have a whole, you know, volunteer, almost, you know, professional development, you know, a get together that we can do, you know, have a speaker from one of the services, or we can have, as I said, you know, a visual merchandiser come and have a chat about styling, or Reverend Linda McWilliam at work is they coordinate pastoral care workers, and they have an active listening course, which they can combine down to 3 hours. So you know, there's those kinds of opportunities down the track that if people are interested and would like us to explore some of those possibilities, we can absolutely do that as well. Yes. Absolutely. Actually, that's probably a really easy way to do it first up. Is everyone aware of Doodle Poll? It's doodle.com. It actually allows, so for example, I would put a list of times when we've got either a session to stock the van, or we've a series of dates when we're going out, and people can just jump in there and tick the box basically when they're available. So it's just a really easy way for people to save 500 emails to identify when everybody's available or not. But if you're going, you know, if you're out with the van and you know that you're going to be away for a month in, you know, March or whatever, just pop that in the book as well. You know, use it as a communication device as well. Or once we've got our volunteer coordinator on board, you will have access to their number, and you send them a text or an email, give them a call, let them know. So we really will be depending on volunteers to be really proactive communicators.
I guess that's one of in the learning how to manage with the parish partnership, one of the downfalls and risks is that things can bottleneck with me and communication doesn't get out because we've got so many other things going on here and parishes are already busy places. But we know we don't want to be a parish that is only doing things within, inward looking for our own community. We are here for the wider community, so we have to find a way. But the risk before we get the infrastructure of volunteers and training and project coordinators is that the information doesn't go out well enough. And that's a very real risk that I face all the time because of so many balls in the air. And Leanne's been incredibly patient with me as we're pushing things through. There's the many emails that I'll go, yep, I'll get to them tomorrow,
That's right.
But what I would like to see is if you have a question, be proactive. Ask me about it, call me. If I've forgotten something, forgive me, and come get back in touch. I would really appreciate that, and that will help us, particularly in these bumpy early days of the project until the structures are there.
Yeah, and feel free to contact me too at any time. In the newsletters, there's always it's the advocacy at anglicaresq.org.au. It's in the newsletter, and feel free to contact me, or it's Elwood, very easy email address with the Anglicare end on it. So, or give me a call. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or do whatever I can. And yeah, as I said, hopefully pretty soon we'll have a volunteer coordinator on board as well who'll be, one of your first port of call if you've got questions.
Check your junk mail too, because from the database, sometimes in some people's emails it goes to their junk folder. So if you haven't been receiving anything, check your junk folder and check with me today that you're on this list. I've just added you, Wendy, actually, you weren't there. Yeah.
Yeah, Kath. Thread Together don't require it. We will have a list of sites that we've visited and their addresses, but they haven't asked us to fill in a logbook. So I can check with them. They pay all our registration and insurance. There is a $1,000 excess which Anglicare will pay if anyone has a prank. So please don't. I just don't want to have to tell anybody. All of that I think is covered by Thread Together.
And is there a necessity for us as volunteers to be mindful of not providing outside this team details about the sites that we visit?
Yeah, please. I think confidentiality if you're having conversations with some of our service users, there's a certain level there of confidentiality that we would ask that you respect that. Even with the handbook, it's not a private document, but it does have my mobile in it and Sue's mobile number in it and various other details that probably we wouldn't necessarily just put out absolutely broadly. So I think it's just about just being a little bit aware of what you share. Yeah.
But I'm mindful too, particularly when we go to a women's centre who have escaped some difficult, that we don't, as people, when we talk to our friends or other people or at any other sites, details about that site, like the address.
Yeah, well, all of the sites that you'll go to, the addresses are public. We all know where the women's service is. In Sync, again, I think it's a public site. And if it's not, we'll usually combine sites. So, for example, our SCA, I always forget what the S stands for. It's not supported. It's the bail service anyway. For the young people, there are houses where the kids live, and we won't be going to those houses. They're in residential areas. We'll actually go to to the office area. So yeah, I mean, all of that will be probably just determined before you don't have to make any, have any issues about going somewhere where you, the address is confidential. The van is so obvious, we'd have to be a little bit cautious about fronting up in a residential street where, it's a safe house or whatever. Yeah. Other questions? No? Well, if you think of something later, you know how to get in contact with me and then with Sue. Thank you. Thank you. It's a lovely project. Really enjoying working on it. And lovely to work with the parish too. Gets me out of the office, gets me to meet some nice people. Thank you. Okay.